All right, welcome back, everybody. Today is day 7 of Foundations of Programming. Yesterday, I left you guys with the Pokemon.html. But before we kick off today's class, I just wanted to ask if anybody here was actually able to complete the assignment. Kevin, right off the bat, saying I finished.
Yes.
Okay.
I
Nick,
was,
okay.
but I'm trying to do something that I think is really cool. So give me a sec.
Sure, okay. So we got a good amount of people doing this or have already completed. Uh,
I feel like I am 80% there, but I'm just having a hard time pulling the data from the fetch request. Like there's just a fundamental understanding that I'm missing.
okay. Yeah. But for the most part, it seems like a large piece of the group has already gotten most of it complete. So because of that, we're not going to spend too long on this. We'll take a demo or in a, two demos if Justin here he gets that cool feature he mentioned running. Uh, and then we'll review some code. That way, for those of you who are almost there but not just there yet, you can kind of see what you might be missing. So Nick or Kevin, which one would you like to volunteer?
I can
I want to
go.
see Kevin's.
Okay, Kevin, it is.
Yeah, cool beans.
Let me go ahead and stop my sharing real quick. Go
Oh,
ahead,
yeah.
Kevin.
Okay. Dun, 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 dun. So here. Okay. You're seeing my screen? It's about the storm, I think. Did y'all see? Do you see my screen? Just so I know I'm good to go.
Are
I
you
think
looking
so.
at the Zoom call?
Yeah, I'm looking at. I don't know. Like I was asking Roger, he's muted, so I don't know. Like,
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
I can
sorry.
see it.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I can see it.
yeah. Okay. So here's my here's the code. But hold on first. Let me just start the live server really quick. And Pokemon HTML. All right, so I did manage to get like just the features done. I also added, as you can see, there's two pictures up here. That's because I don't know how long everybody in this call. I guess everyone knows Pokemon or like played it, but there are some different like Pokemon that a male and a female is different. So just to show you, let's just look at the mascot Pikachu themselves. I make the APL call, and as you can see, there's two different Pikachu's, and these are two different pictures that are being pulled from the API. Can you
What?
tell the difference between the
Yeah,
male and the female?
yeah, I didn't know that. That's crazy. I didn't know there was such a big difference. I thought they were just like, they looked the same.
Yeah, they're different. This is the male one that we all know, regular tail, but this is the female, and their tail is kind of like curved, like a heart almost. So there are certain Pokemon like that, and maybe another one. So if I do Alakazam, which is another of the 151, also male and female. The male has longer whiskers than the female has shorter. If you click on shiny, it actually does change, like show the shiny variations of both of them. If you click off, it also takes it off of it again. The name, and then at the bottom left is just the type, which is psychic. And then for dual typing, let's just do Gengar, for example. Gengar is dual type ghost poison right here. So that, but he doesn't have a different form. They're all the same, like male, so they have the same form. But if you're looking at the code right here, how I'm doing this, so first thing, this comment out code right here is just because of like I was actually just using this to experiment, just to look at, there was actually a specific Pokemon I was trying to look at, so that's why I have this piece of code here. It's doing data calls. Down here, at the very bottom, I actually created a capitalized helper function, and this is just to help out with the type. Like that way, it's like capital. If you see back here, because it just came back as like ghost poison, and they were just lowercase. So just a small helper function, and what it's doing. I'm checking if the type length is greater than 2. That means that the Pokemon has more than one type. So then I just do the document query selector, set the text content to both of the types. If not, just display that one type. And then for the shiny check, in my HTML down here, so the shiny check, I did make a input box for the checkbox, and like I was able to just check it, check to see if it was checked or not. If the user checks it, then it shows both. It shows the male one first. This is the male or default one first, and then same thing for the female down here is doing the same thing. But if I'm checking the info, if this Pokemon does have a front female sprite is available for the sprite, then I check if the shiny is checked, and also if there is a front shiny female variation, and then I set both of the female images. And if not, then just put it as an empty string. That means that the Pokemon, like the art, only has one. There's only one variation of that art, and that's it, actually. And there's like the document query selector for the shiny check.
You're muted,
Everybody,
Roger.
yeah. I don't know.
My bad, my bad.
It was quiet for a
I thought I
second.
was
Yeah.
just being ignored. I was like, oh, why is everybody hating me, man? Yeah. Can I see the shiny version of Gengar? I've never seen him. Does he
Oh
have
yeah,
one?
it's really gray. It just turns
Oh,
gray. He
okay.
has a gray variation.
Interesting.
And I
That
think
makes me.
aren't you a Dragonite? Your favorite Pokemon is
I am.
Dragonite.
I am. Let's see the Dragonite.
It's green.
Oh, that's so lame, dude.
I think so. It's green.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, awesome, great work, Kevin. Yeah, that was spot on. You did everything pretty well. I really enjoy how you talk through your code from top to bottom, what your code's doing. Some people when they first start sharing the code, they're like, "Yeah, this is my code," and then they don't really talk too much about it. But good job on the explanation of your code. I really enjoy that. But good
Thank you.
work. Right on.
Thank you.
Um,
If there's one thing I would change, I think I would want to not have both of these image blocks being shown here. Like if it's only a male, then it should just show like the one picture and hide the female. But couldn't get that far, so
mhm.
that's the only thing.
Yeah, no, good work. Good work. All
Yeah.
right, Justin, were you able to get that feature up?
Yes, let's do this. I'm pretty happy with this. Okay. Um, let me
I feel like
see
it's gonna
here.
be
I need
really,
a
really
third
good.
screen. I'm
Yeah.
really excited for this. Our power was out basically up until like 3 hours before. So I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do? But I worked hard. So first I'm gonna show you what on earth is going on here. Uh, so bam. Actually, so here we go.
Oh,
And so like let's say
wow.
put Charizard in there. Bam! It's Charizard. Click
Wow.
shiny. Bam, it's shiny Charizard. Um, and just to like talk through that, I did that by well, one, I actually got Photoshop just so I could create like an image here that had no background so I could impose it over there. Was it worth it? Well, I have 7 days free, so we'll find out. But then so yeah, I'll show you the code later, but place a little blank image over this so that it would get replaced. The blank image would get replaced and it'd still be over um, the pulsating star thing. So anyway, I thought it was cool.
I'm curious.
Uh,
What'd you do for that pulsating star in the back?
it's a GIF.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Like,
No,
yeah.
that's good. That's good. That's awesome.
So
Yo,
yeah, I'm not like everyone here. I've never seen Pokemon. I didn't know how they had male and females. I'm joking. But I didn't know they had male and females. Anyway, that's what's going on here. And yes, crap. What's the hotkey for DevTools again? Oh well. Anyway, I've got it set up so the console message comes up as fail on an error, which I thought was funny. But anyway, I guess I'll walk you through the code. Um, let's go here. Okay, so here we go. It's like the actual HTML isn't super crazy, just
We're
stuck
still looking at
things.
the
Oh
website.
no. Well, it's a good
yeah,
website, isn't it? Well,
it's
oh, I
okay.
never hit share. Well, here we go. You're looking at screen one now?
Yes.
Okay, so the HTML isn't anything crazy, just stuck my three images in here. Um, and I've got um okay, just the placeholder being like choose a Pokemon in the little search bar and a little checkbox for where is it? So down here we have a checkbox for shiny so that whenever I go to my JavaScript, I can set that as a constant so that if that's checked, then it'll fetch the shiny class, or not class, whatever we'd call it. Still got to do some reading on APIs. But anyway, simple on this end. I'll go to the CSS sheet. Did anyone have any questions on this, by the way? Just at this point? Probably not. Anyway, going to CSS, it wasn't anything, again, nothing crazy. The only tricky part was setting it up so that I could have that GIF over the Pokemon logo overlaying the GIF, and then the blank image centered in it. And I'm gonna be honest, once it came down to I was trying to like get the formatting right whenever this happened. So I like finally had what I had, which was I had the Pokemon thing in the right spot and the GIF and the blank thing on there, but I couldn't get it right, so I chat GPT'd it. So boo on me, right? Like big fail. So in any case, it looks like the big thing that it added was this transform thing that I'm not super aware of, but anyway, the big accomplishment here was packaging it so that it would pop up in the middle of the GIF. Anyway, the JavaScript, I have it set up so that it'll go through this asynchronous function, like it'll go through this asynchronous function after you click, right? And then three constants here were the actual input here. I didn't want to write the URL every time, and then it adds a choice. And then if you'd clicked the shiny box here. And so for error correction, right, I've got it. If Pokemon's not found, it'll return Pokemon not found. But otherwise, it's fairly straightforward. I'm not gonna get super crazy into the weeds here. Especially since I'm following another one or two people who'd already explained similar code. Anyway, sorry for I
Awesome.
started rambling and caught myself.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Good stuff. Everything seems pretty standard. I will say I will give caution in using try blocks. Um, so they're very helpful, very powerful. I really enjoy using try and accept blocks, try and catch blocks. The downside to using try blocks is when you have a lot of code in the try block, right? So
Mm.
the way that these try blocks work is that they're going to try everything inside of the code. But if at any point anything fails, it's going to jump to the accept block or the catch block, and then it's going to be very difficult to debug where in the try block it is failing, right? Because what's going to happen is going to give you whatever error you put in the accept block, but it won't tell you where the error happened in the try block. So you have to kind
Oh,
of
that makes sense.
yeah, so be very careful with these. You typically want to have like small amounts of code in there where there's a little error or a little room for error, right? If you're doing a lot of stuff in the try block and something goes wrong, whether you try typecast something that doesn't work or the fetch request doesn't work, you try to add a string with an int, something like that, something dumb, you won't know where the error is. It's gonna be really annoying to kind of debug it. So uh, I
That
like that
does
you use. Uh-huh.
explain. Oh, that does explain where I'd seen them before. It was like over a single function or a single type of function, and then like returned what it was a console log. So
Yeah.
that
So
does
they're
make sense.
they're good. Just careful how much you put in them. So you don't write that. I mean, you can still work. It'll still do what
Yeah.
you want it to do, but it can become a quick pain in the on the butt, right? Whenever you're trying to kind of figure out what's going on, why is my try block not working?
That
But
makes sense.
overall, pretty good. I'm glad that you did use it though. That's pretty cool. You know, I didn't use them for a hot minute before. I got really comfortable with coding because
This
I don't
was
know.
my big debut for try blocks, if I'm being honest. I'm like, you know what? We're looking for errors here. We want to return error messages. Let's try it out.
Yeah, you want to use them. They're very helpful. I like I said, I didn't use them for a while when I first started because I couldn't understand. I was like, wow, like every time I use them, it's giving me issues. I don't want to use it. But if you can
Mm,
use them, it looks very elegant. So I really like them.
mm,
So good job.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. I think that concludes it for our demonstrations. The Pokemon is always a very fun one to work on. Quick disclaimer: we use Pokemon API for a lot in the immersive program. By the end of the immersive program, you get sick of the Pokemon talk because you're going to use Pokemon API a lot. So this won't be the first or last time that you're going to see the Poke API. We're going to use it a lot for working with our backend and trying out learning Django or learning the front end. We use it a lot as a way to get data. But all right, that concludes Pokemon.html. Let's go ahead and continue with our class. I mentioned this yesterday in regards to API, but all APIs have documentation, where some are better than others, right? And I'll give you a comparison, right? Let's look at the dog API that we saw yesterday. The dog API was pretty straightforward. It gives you right off the bat an example of how to use it. Just ping it with something random, and it tells you what you're going to get back. When you check the in-depth documentation for it, there's only a couple endpoints, right? It looks like there's 5 main endpoints with some, sub endpoints within them, right? Where if you go to like random image, you can see 2 different ways to get random image. So there's not many endpoints here, but it's very straightforward, right? It just shows you this is how you're supposed to do, and this is what it gives you. Some APIs can be a little bit more complex than others. And the Spotify API is a huge example of a very complex API, right? It's not as user friendly as some of them. When you go to getting started, there's different ways that you can get started and different code snippets depending on what you're trying to do, and it can get very confusing very quickly. Trying to understand what you require, the authorization flow is very complex in itself too. I'm trying to show you this image, but it's not working that well. But here this shows you the flow of how this API works, right? You have to, in your application, you have to make the request, and it tells you what you're supposed to include in here. It's maybe too small to see from my share screen, but it's asking for like, you have to give it a client ID, the response type, a redirect URL, state and scope. This goes to Spotify. Then it's going to redirect the user to the Spotify website to log in. So they require Spotify website. So they have to log in through their Spotify and authorize it. Kind of similar to when you go to a website and you try to either create an account, or it tells you log in using your Gmail or log in using GitHub, right? For those of you who've been to websites involving code and stuff, sometimes it allows you to log in with GitHub. I think Replit is very similar to that. uh, it redirects you to like GitHub, right? And it makes you sign in through there, or it redirects you to Google to sign in through there. So that's kind of what this is doing. It's going to redirect your user to Spotify, so they have to authenticate through their Spotify account, and then from there, it's going to send them back to your application, where you then ask for access and refresh tokens, right? And then once again, once you have your access and refresh tokens, you put in another request using this information, and it's just a long flow of how the talk between you and the Spotify API is supposed to work until finally you get what you were asking for. So this is very complex in comparison to something like the dog API, where you don't require any kind of headers, no type of authorization. You're not working with tokens. So some APIs are a little bit more in depth than others. Some documentation is a little bit easier to navigate through, while others aren't. So when choosing an API, just be careful what you're using and how it's used. The documentation really is actually very in depth. It's actually very helpful. But for a beginner coder, this can seem very confusing. Why do I need, like, what's an access token? Token type? What is it? Like, why do I need this? Right? It can get very confusing. So whenever we're looking for an API for your application, make sure you do your research, look into it. Is it a paid version? If it's free, how many free inputs do you have, right? Because some APIs they're paid, right? The dog API is free, but some of them they'll give you so many API calls before they put a payment barrier in front of it, and they're like, hey, you've exceeded your amount of API calls. If you want to continue using our API, you have to sign up for our subscription, right? So make sure when you choose your API, choose one that has good documentation, right? One that isn't going to charge you right off the bat. I do not encourage you guys for you to buy APIs for your personal projects. Get a simple one that's free. There's no reason to have to pay for anything at any point of our course. Make sure the documentation shows you from start to finish how it's supposed to work. That way, you're able to figure it out, right, and not struggle. Don't be me, right? Don't be me who used Spotify API for the first time ever for his personal project. And I spent half the time building my project just trying to make the API work. That was me trying to make a personal project. We got 3 weeks, a week and a half consisted of me just trying to work with that code, the API flow between me and Spotify. Um, I actually didn't do it right. When I made my personal project, I didn't like the idea that the users that were coming to my website had to authenticate to Spotify. Like, what's the point? If they have to sign up and buy a membership with Spotify, then what's the point of them coming to my website? They might as well just go to Spotify. So I was using like my own logins to Spotify on my backend to get them access to everything Spotify has to offer. And then I started reading through their like policies and like rules, and that's like really illegal. So I had to go back and like redo everything. I had to redo the entire flow of my API. Unfortunately, like literally like a week into this project, and I had yet to do everything else. I was like, oh man, I'm falling behind. So don't buy more than you can chew. Choose a friendly API that doesn't require you to pay, has good documentation, and is not outside of the scope of your knowledge, right? It's always good to kind of expand a little bit because they expose you to have to learn more. But make sure it's not too much for your skill level. This was for sure a lot for me at the time, so don't be like me. All right, the next concept we're going to talk about is using local storage, right? So local storage is going to allow us to keep track of certain values through our application. For example, let's say very similar to Spotify, right? When they authenticate through Spotify, the way that this works is that it gives you a token. Have you guys ever heard of token-based authorization? Anybody? Does that sound familiar? Right. So the way that it works is, let's say Justin here wanted to come to my website. He goes ahead and logs in. Well, the way that I track that Justin is logged in is by giving him a token. So whenever Justin comes to my website, he puts in his credentials and he clicks login. What my website should be doing is I should be able to grab his information, send it to my backend, make sure he is a valid user. After I verify that he does have the authorization to have access to this information, what I then do is I generate what's called a token. It's pretty much just like a pass. Right? Like when you go somewhere that you need some kind of badge or pass to walk around, very similar to that, right? Think of it as like, locations that are, top secret. You can't just walk around without like an escort, or sometimes you have to leave your phone behind. You have to take like a badge so they know who you are, right? Kind of like that. You want to make sure the people who are accessing this information have the rights to be here. So how do you do that? You create what we call a token, which is just a almost like a password that you assign to them. It's like a generation of numbers and letters. And this token is what you use to keep track of the activity of your users. So how do we maintain this token? Well, there's different ways of doing it. The way that we're going to be use a lot throughout here and even in the um, immersive program is going to be by token authorization, and we're going to use local storage mainly for the development process to save this local token or this token in the local storage so we keep track of Justin. So when Justin goes from his profile to, let's say, his gallery or his library or whatever my application does, as he's navigating between pages, and I have to get new information for his web page that he's trying to access, I'm going to check my local storage to see if I have a token from him. And if I have a token, then with that token, I'm going to give him access to this new page that he's trying to access, right? And this token is just something that we use to reference to make sure that we know that the person trying to navigate through our web page is logged in and is a valid user. We're not going to be using tokens throughout FOP, but I'm going to show you how we're going to use local storage and how you manipulate it. So when you get into the immersive program and you start working with authorization or token-based authorization, you know, hey, I'm going to use the local storage. I'm going to save this token in here so I can use it as I navigate to the page. So you'll know how to manipulate the local storage to save values. So what is local storage? Local storage is a special kind of API that allows you to store data across browser sessions, right? So why is it important? What happens to our apps right now when we refresh the page? When we refresh the page, everything pretty much gets reset, right? It reruns our code, it reruns the script, and nothing stays constant, right? We lose pretty much what we do, right? If our code is creating variables and doing stuff, when we refresh the page, it's going to rerun it again and recreate these variables, and we lose access to these values, right? So how do we get past this hurdle? Well, we can use local storage to save values within our browser, so we don't lose them as we navigate through different pages. And the way that you're going to manipulate local storage is by these commands here that you see at the bottom right of the slide. Local storage, you're going to be able to access it by using the command local storage, almost like the DOM, right? The way that we manipulate the DOM was by calling document. Same concept here. To manipulate local storage, we're calling the local storage object, and we're using the .set item, right? The .set item takes two arguments. The first argument is going to be the key, and the second argument is going to be the value. Think of it as a dictionary in Python or an object in JavaScript, right? It takes a key value pair, right? So with this key value pair, it's going to set it in the local storage. If you want to grab something from local storage, you can use the get item, right? Very, straightforward methods, right? We're able to grab an item by using the get item method and then passing in the key of that item that we're trying to grab, right? Similar to accessing a dictionary or an object in JavaScript, right? Still same concept. After we grab the item, we're even able to save it into values or variables at different parts of our application, right? We have set item, get item. How do you remove something from local storage? We'll use remove item, right? Pretty straightforward naming convention for these methods. And then finally, once you're ready to log out, how can you make sure that the user is logged out from the browser side? You can clear your local storage or just remove the token altogether. And here we have a small little snippet of what it looks like. Local storage runs the set item method. We pass in the key of counts and the value of 1. And here's how your local storage looks on your inspect or your DevTools, your DOM, right? If you go to the application tab, on the left side, you'll see storage and you'll see local storage. And then you're able to see what your application is saving into your local storage. And it should be split up like this, where you have key and a value, right? The left side is whatever key you assign to it, and then the value is on the right side, right? Pretty straightforward. Do you have any questions so far? Awesome. So let's give it a try. It's a pretty straightforward one. We're going to go ahead and open up bot score. Open with live server. I hate live server so much. Bot score. All right. So nothing crazy here in my HTML, right? We have an image with a source, which is this 123 image. We have an H4 element that has the text of show local storage count here. And that's about it. Now let's look at the HTML. The HTML has the commands for local storage. We have local storage dot set item. All right, so when this runs, when I refresh this page, it's automatically already running this set item method, and it's setting the key of count to the value of 1. We then access that key value pair from local storage, and we content.log. Right, so let's see how that's looking like in our inspect tool. So before I do anything else, let's check local storage. So I go to application, and then application, I'm going to navigate to the left side, and I should see here under the storage section, local storage. I'm going to press down on the drop down button, and I see here that my application that's running on port 5500 has something saved in it. I can click it, and here is my key of count and my value of 1. Right? If I check the console, here is what my JavaScript file on line 5 is running, which is a console.log of the item that is inside of local storage, right? I'm doing local storage dot get item, and I'm grabbing counts, saving it to the variable called get string, and I'm console.logging, therefore showing that I have the 1, right? Pretty straightforward. Your assignment is to create a button, right? There's no button here. You need to create a button that's going to add 1 and a button that subtracts 1 to a bot score stored in local storage, right? The current count in local storage should be mirrored in the DOM. Finally, add a button that resets the count to 0 as well. So you should be able to create 2 different buttons, add and subtract. When you press add, it should update the value in your local storage, right? And now whatever is saved inside of local storage needs to be given to the H4 tag right here, where you're going to show the local storage count. So once again, when you go ahead and press this button to add, it should not be manipulating the H4 tag directly. That button should increase the count of the local storage, and then using the local storage, assign the new value to H4, right? So there's like a little middle, like an extra step between doing all this. Also, your subtract should be able to decrease the counts. And finally, have that reset button that's going to reset it back to 0. All right, pretty straightforward. It's just a button that's going to increase the number from, up or down. Nothing crazy. Do I have any questions before we get into try? Awesome. Time is 6:05. Let's go ahead and go into 6:15. So 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we'll come back. We'll get a small demonstration of someone's work, and then we'll take our first 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and finish off with the last assignment for this lesson.
Okay. Let me know when y'all can see my screen.
We see it.
Okay, in the HTML file, all I did was, added some line breaks. I added 3 buttons, add 1, subtract 1, and set to 0. I gave them all unique IDs, which is how I referenced them in the JavaScript file. Then I also set the default H4 element to count 0. So it starts at 0 if it's your first time coming to the page.
Okay.
Now, for the go ahead.
No, I'm just saying okay.
Cool. Now for the JavaScript, I declared a variable, and it looks for local storage get item count. I didn't run into an issue if it didn't have it. Well, actually, maybe if I'd wiped my cookies, I might have. So that might be something to worry about. Um, anyway, so I got a query selector on the
H4.
H4 element, and it assigns it to count. So if you refresh from so let's see, let's go to you refresh the page, it'll automatically, even if you hit refresh, the number persists no matter what you have. If it was 0, negative. But if you start clicking those buttons, I've got 3 different actions for them: the document query selector add one, minus one, and reset. And all of them, when you click them, they run one of these 3 functions added down here: add one, minus one, and reset. They're all very similar. Add one gets the current value for the count and adds one to it. It stores it in local storage with this line right here. It then updates the text on the screen in the count in the H4 element, and that's it. And then so same thing with minus one, it does the exact same thing except for minus one. And then for reset, it does the exact same thing except just sets it to 0 regardless of what the original values were. So you can add to it, you can refresh the page, you can copy it and open it in a new tab, and it maintains whatever it was before. Set it to 0, subtract, same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned like maybe I have to like delete my cookies or delete the stuff. That's the main point, right? That's the main point of having local storage is that when you navigate to different pages, you don't lose these values, right? So you're able to come back to them because your browser is keeping track of these values. So the fact that you don't get an error, that's the main point of this is the fact that it's still staying in your browser. Your browser is keeping track of all of this, right? So even though it might stop below the live server, it's your browser still has that value saved in there. So it's good, right? That's the main point of using local storage. So now that you guys got a quick little assignment on that, now you can see why it could be very helpful if you're using token-based authentication and you have to keep your user logged in, and then if he goes from like his profile to his library or to a search window somewhere else, but you still want to make sure that he has his token saved somewhere so you can uh you know leverage it whenever you need to make sure he's logged in or not. It stays in local storage and you don't lose it when you navigate between pages, right? So that's why local storage can be very helpful for token-based authentication. I will say it's not the most secure method, right? There's other ways that you can do, which you'll get into the immersive program. But it is very helpful for small applications and for developing, right? So token based authentication is common, but there are obviously more secure ways and different ways of doing it. I just wanted to show you guys this method, right? So you guys know how to use it once you get into the immersive program. Do you have any question before I move?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I was trying to assign a variable or trying to assign the text of my counter to the local storage item. However, that was not working. Can you explain why?
Sure. Let's go ahead and see your code. I just want to make sure I understand what you're trying to do.
All right. So what I was trying to do is for showing count, like I call whenever that button's clicked, it's just this function is added to each one of these. So it's constantly updated. What I was trying to do was just let's go. Document, query selector, equals. However, I was not getting anything from that. And maybe because you're looking at it and I did it differently. Yep, that's exactly what it was. I must have had a bug or something. I just couldn't get it to work. Never mind. I retract my question.
It's
God
okay.
bless it.
It happens.
All right.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Time is 6:26. Let's come back in 10 minutes, so 6:36, and then we're gonna do our last assignment for this lesson, and then we're gonna move into CRUD applications. I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. All right, let's go ahead and come back, everybody. The last assignment for this lesson is going to be the NASA Picture of the Day API. So you will notice that there is no file, there's no directory within the curriculum that has anything involving the NASA Picture of the Day API. And that's because it's going to be all up to you guys. All right. What you're going to do, you're going to navigate to the NASA API website, api.nasa.gov, or you can just Google it. It should be the very first one that's going to come up on Google. And you should be at a website just like this, right? What you're going to do is you're going to create the HTML and JavaScript for displaying the NASA picture of the day, right? So the API has different endpoints that it provides for you. This is the website for it. What your job is to navigate through the documentation, figure out where the endpoint for the NASA picture of the day is, how to create the fetch request for the NASA picture of the day, and then implement this in your JavaScript to display it on your webpage, right? Your HTML doesn't have to be anything crazy. All it has to be just some kind of image tag. If you want to put a header to show NASA picture of the day, sure. But all you really need to do is just display the NASA picture of the day. You're going to see that there is something that you have to do to ensure that you can get this NASA picture of the day, but it's going to come through reading documentation. So this is kind of like a little practice of getting an API that you haven't seen before, or I'm not telling you how to do it. You're just going to read through documentation, try to figure it out, and then show the picture. What I do want to point out is that sometimes there isn't a picture of the day. Sometimes the API might have a video of the day instead of a picture. It's happened where I've ran this class before, and the NASA picture of the day, it doesn't show because we're trying to put a video in an image tag. So if it's a video, that's okay. Don't worry too much about it. But as long as you're able to ping the API and get the quote unquote image of the day, then you can call this assignment a success. Do I have any questions?
Is this called astronomy picture of the day?
I believe so. Yeah, it might be astronomy picture of the day. Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So time is 6:39. I'll give you guys 15 minutes to kind of give it a try. Let's go ahead and come back at 6:54. We'll get a small, quick little demo because it shouldn't be that much code. It's like 5 lines of code, I think. And then we will move on to lesson 6, which is CRUD applications. So give it an honest try. I'll see you guys in a bit. All right, welcome back, everybody. So before we went on that little split, I assigned you guys the NASA picture of the day. All right, so this is the documentation page for the API for NASA. And then when you guys just start the assignment, you will have noticed a couple things. It's first and foremost the very first thing that you're presented with, which is generating an API key. So this should have already kind of give you a clue of what you might need here, like an API key, right? And I know we didn't specifically go through how to use an API key, but I did mention the fact that there will be keys, secret keys, maybe tokens, stuff like that, right? So scrolling down, you might try to figure out where would I find this API for picture of the day. You could continue scrolling down, or you could just use the tabs. It would have told you kind of where it was. It's almost like a table of contents or a nav bar for the homepage. If you would have clicked Browse APIs, it would have brought you all the way to the bottom right? And you would see all the different APIs NASA provides, and literally is the very first one within the documentation page with the astronomy picture of the day. Uh, I was asked this question right before we went on break, and I did confirm it's this one, right? The APOC, astronomy picture of the day. When you click it, you will be presented with something like this. It gives you a description of what the APOD is, and it even shows you the full documentation for this specific API. If you want to look into it, you can go into the GitHub repository, and you can see different stuff like getting started, documentation, different stuff. But honestly, you didn't really need to do any of that. If you scroll a little bit further, you would have gone to this part right here, which is the HTTP request for a GET request. We can kind of see it here. It talks to you about query parameters, which should look fairly similar when working with the Cocktail DB, how we were able to add parameters. And then right after that, you see the example query. This should have been all you really needed, which is the URL path, right? At the end of the URL, we see here we have API underscore key is equal to then demo key. Uh, a little bit of context clue should have let you know that this is a placeholder, right? And known that you would have to replace the demo key with your actual API key, right? So what that means is you would require to come up here and generate an API key by getting your first name, last name, and email, and then just how you're going to use it. They don't give you any spam. It's just really so they can email you your key and you have access to it. And once you get your API key via email, this is what you're going to use to add it into your string for your URL path. And this is the URL that you would use for your fetch request. Now, with that in mind, can I get Nick? Would you like to demonstrate your fetch request?
Yes, but that being said, it may be wrong.
It's okay.
Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see it.
HTML file. I just copied one from earlier, or I made a new one, then copied some stuff from earlier, or modified it from earlier. I've got NASA picture of the day in the H1 header. I've got an image container with ID image, so I can reference it in the JavaScript app. I did rename it because I stuck it in the same folder. I was just going fast in the Pokemon folder, so I renamed it to NASA-app.javascript. All I do in it is I immediately call a function called getFetch. It uses asynchronous, declares the function. It goes to that URL that was given to us. I just used the demo key. I didn't use a key given to me.
You can. The website tells you there's some limitations on it, but you can use it like 30 times an hour.
Okay. So, because I did, sure enough, I got the image, and I was like, oh, was it just a placeholder image? Well, then I went to the inspect element, if it would pull up. I turned off my console log. Let's do that again. So if I refresh this 30 times, it'd probably stop, you think?
That's what the website says per IP address, but since you're on the local host, who knows?
Let's try. I want
So I
you
looked.
to pause your sharing, Nick. Grab yourself an API key and then just prop that bad boy in there. And then
Okay.
without sharing your JavaScript file, just share your browser once you're done. Show us the picture of the day. Because I don't
Okay.
want you to share your API key to everyone in the recording.
And the reason why I think it may be correct though is it does have a date on the object of the day, and it is today's date. So
It is today's date. Okay.
yeah, it gave me today. So I think it's going to be the same, but I'll go ahead and do it.
Okay. It looks fairly familiar. I feel like I've seen that picture. Then again, how different could galaxies be? I don't know. I'm an astronomy person. Let me pause the recording real quick. Okay. All right, so Nick confirms the image looks exactly the same. I'm assuming they just update your demo key with the demo response to whatever the daily picture is, so that's okay. No big. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our next lesson, which is going to be CRUD applications. Before we start, who knows what CRUD apps are?
Like an app that can like create, read, update, and delete like various information.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. It's pretty much the acronym, right? It's in the wording of CRUD, right? That's what CRUD stands for. CRUD is an acronym for the keywords of create, read, update, and delete, right? It's pretty much the operations of your application, right? These four operations map to the HTTP protocol method, which is right now is a little out of context. Don't worry too much about it. But the protocol, the internet that the internet uses to run, right? So if you think about whenever when you go to a website, you put like HTTP, right, and then the web browser, the web URL. Uh, all these endpoints have the ability to do something like post, get, put, or delete, or create, read, update, and delete, right? Uh, the terms create, read, update, delete can be converted into these terms. Whenever we grab information, we get something, right? The reading of this information is called a GET request, right? So the ability of us being able to grab information from an API and displaying it on our browser, that's the GET request, right? We are putting in a GET request. We're requesting to get information back, and then displaying it, right? Creating something new is used with what we call a post request, right? We are creating a post request when we create something new. Think of when your user signs up for your website, right? When your user comes and he puts in his email and his password, his username, date of birth, yada yada, he wants to create an account. The way that your backend would work this will be by making a post request, right? Your front end would put in a post request to your backend with the information that the user provided to you, right? So when you want to create a new account and your backend for a new user, your front end will put in a post request to your backend with this information, therefore creating this new user, right? The reading of this information is the GET request. So when your user logs in and you're trying to grab your user's information from your backend, you put in a GET request to get this information and display it to your user, right? The next one is going to be your update, right? The update ability in your application is mapped to the put request, right? So whether you want to update your email, update your password, update your profile picture, right? Whenever you have an already existing item and you want to update it, change the value to it, that's mapped to the method of a put request, right? I'm going to put a put request to update my username. And then finally, and probably the most straightforward one as well, is the delete ability, right? The ability for your application to delete something, right, is mapped to the method of a delete request, right? So whenever you are deleting your account or you're deleting, let's say, a status from your Facebook account, right? You delete an image from your gallery. You are deleting something. If you delete a song from your playlist, on this website, you tell your browser that you want to delete something. Your browser is going to grab the item you're trying to delete. It's going to put in a delete request to your backend, and in your backend, what it's going to do is going to remove it from its database, and then it's going to return to the user its updated library or its updated playlist to now display the updated version of it, right? So all these operations is what your modern websites consist of, right? Uh, Yesterday, when I gave you that small little 2 minute intro to Postman, uh, we saw this drop down menu next to the URL endpoint section, and we saw a bunch of options, right? We set this to the get option so we can put in a fetch request to the APIs, and I demonstrate to you the margarita uh, get request, right? These fetch requests that we have been making have been essentially get requests. We have been getting information from these APIs, right? We did not create anything new. We didn't update anything. We didn't delete anything. All we did was we talked to this third-party API via a method of a GET request, right? So Postman is going to allow you to manipulate all this. Whenever you guys are creating your backends for your personal projects in the immersive programs, you're going to have to use Postman to work with your backend, whether it's getting information, whether it's creating a user, updating a user, or deleting a user. All right. So the way that we are going to practice this, actually, where is? Okay, I guess we'll get to it a little bit later. We'll talk about this real quick. Before we go into our assignment, all websites, pretty much all these applications that we use in our day-to-day lives have CRUD abilities, right? CRUD capabilities, right? Think of your TikTok, right? When you save a TikTok that you enjoyed, or if you use Instagram and you save a reel to your saved reels, you are updating, right? You're putting a put request to your account for your library of your saved reels, right? It's updating what you've liked, your activity. These are essentially put requests, right? When you create a new folder, or let's say create a new chat on WhatsApp, right? When you create a new chat with your friends, um, and you add your people in here, you essentially put in a post request to the backend of WhatsApp where it's going to generate this new group, right? And it's going to use your whoever you added within this group chat part of that information to create this group, right? When you delete a group chat, right? When you delete a reel from your Instagram account, right? Or you delete a picture, you put in delete request. Everything that you do, all these applications that you use, they all have been demonstrating without you noticing the capabilities of CRUD, right? Creating, reading, updating, and deleting. Up to this point, you've been doing something fairly similar, right? The GET requests that you've been putting to the APIs, you have been making GET requests, right? The RUD capabilities aspect, reading stuff, reading these HTML tags, right? Displaying the information you're getting from the GET request, and creating tags of them. That's you are reading the information, right? So your application is able to show this information. You created a new element yesterday, right? If you guys recall the instructions for the cocktail DB, we created a new element and appended it to an existing element, right? So right there, I showed you guys how you create a new element, therefore demonstrating the create aspect of CRUD, right? We have yet to delete an element, but I kind of showed you already yesterday how you can kind of do that already, how you delete something. And then the updating of stuff, it's kind of like how we update the divs, how we updated the images, right? The source. Um, these are all capabilities that you have already been starting to show and do without you realizing it. Now, the way that we've been doing it these last couple of days are very simple. The way that you would actually do this in your backend can get a little bit more complex. There's actual real ways of doing this, but what we are going to be doing today is kind of mimicking these actions to show you an understanding of how this works, right? So when you get to your backend week in the immersive program and you're creating users, you're creating playlists, libraries, you're creating whatever your website has, or you're deleting or updating, you already understand these concepts of why they're doing what they're doing. Right? So we're going to build a to-do list today. Right? This is pretty common first project. Most of these like self-paced boot camps typically have you build a to-do list at the end of their program, but they're usually like they walk you through it. I'm not gonna walk you through it. I'm throwing you into the deep end of the pool, right? You guys have everything that you need enough, or to make this happen, right? So in a to-do list, you should be able to add a new task, whether it's to go grocery shopping, to do the laundry, mow the grass. You should be able to, in an input tag, create something like a new task that you need to complete, right? You should have a button that's going to allow you to add this element into an existing list or to create a list if you don't have one yet, right? So we're going to demonstrate the create ability within this to-do list application. The reading aspect of CRUD is going to be you displaying this new created element on your page, right? So whenever you create a new task, you should be able to append it to your existing HTML and show it on your screen, right? So we're going to replicate the reading aspect of this by doing that. So you should be able to append children, create new elements, and display them with your already existing elements. The updating aspect of this to-do list should be when you're done with a task, you should be able to click on it and update the task to either delete it or, as you see here as an example, cross it out from your to-do list. Right. So you should be able to have some kind of manipulation of your elements where you click on something, it updates it. And then finally, when you want to remove something from your to-do list, you should be able to specifically delete one item if you wanted to. Right. So notice here, this image doesn't have the trash can symbol, but whenever they're ready to delete something, they were able to display this. So you might want to have like a button that says like delete a task. And then when you click it, it kind of shows you which ones you can delete. However you want to handle this functionality is going to be up to you. If you want to have a checkbox, whatever, right? But essentially have the functionality of deleting an element and then once again updating your updated version of your list. Do you have any questions so far? That's going to be the to-do list. Let's continue with slides before we break off. This is a very random slide. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know why we have this, but we talked about tutorial help, right? Let me just kind of emphasize like why, or remind you guys why you are here, right? If you're like me, the reasons why I looked for a boot camp coming in, trying to break into the tech industry, was because you lacked structure, right? You guys knew what you wanted, you know what the end goal is, but you didn't know how to get there, right? You didn't know anything about what language should I be using, what framework should I be using, what type of project should I be creating, where, what kind of assignment should I be working on to practice these skills. You probably tried YouTube tutorials, right? You probably opened up a book, you've heard or you've talked to your friends about this, but you've ended up in a spot where you're like, I'm kind of lost. I don't even know if am I even learning the correct things, right? Uh, so for those of you who are here right now, just this is the main purpose of it, right? A lot of this is going to be learning as you go, as well as you may have noticed. I present to you the topics, we talk about them. I give you enough for you to work on, and then we leave room for questions like, well, what if I want to do this, right? And then we expand on it. We do some research. The immersive program is going to be very similar to how we've been running this foundation programming, right? You're going to have your curriculum. We're going to talk about your work from 9 to 12. 12 comes along, you're going to get assignments, but you're going to notice that there's going to be some things that there might be some gaps in these assignments. You're like, how would I do this? Like, is there a better way of doing this? So there's going to be a lot of research and looking stuff up, trying new things. But yeah, I don't know why this slide here. It was very random. But you guys are doing pretty good so far. How do you guys feel so far?
The API's been taking me for a spin.
Yeah. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I know, right?
Doing
Can't
all right?
complain. Yeah, I'm feeling
Okay.
all right.
Level of difficulty so far in the material. Not too bad, right? Just enough to kind of make you think. Definitely completely different from guide application to like now, right? two different things. You know, 2 weeks ago you were trying to understand functions or dictionaries, and today you guys are using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and pinging APIs and getting data, right? Now you're about to create a CRUD application. So good stuff, good stuff. All right, the to-do list. We're going to build the replica of this, right? It doesn't have to look exactly like this, right? Make sure you guys focus on the functionality, but you want to have something fairly similar to this, right? Where you have somewhere where you can create a new list item, and then somewhere where you want to display these elements, right? Do I have any questions before we break off and give this a try? All right. Time is 7:21. We're going to go until 8:21. Go on a 10-minute break, actually, whenever you want. But we'll probably come back at 8:20, 21. Depending on the state of where you guys are at, we might go a little bit further, or we might just kind of talk about a little bit of it and then leave it until tomorrow. So we'll see. I'm going to break it up into rooms. All right. So we went a little bit further in time than I initially expected. And we lost like 2 people that had to leave. But that's okay. Some of you guys got pretty far, some of you guys not too much, but no biggie. This is the last actual exercise for front end that we will be covering during the foundation programming. So it is the much bigger of all the exercises. You're pretty much bringing together everything that you have learned up to this point, and using it, right? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, working with DOM, and then just trying to replicate the CRUD capability. So it will take a little bit to get a final product, but that's okay. The to-do list is pretty traditional. It's almost like a rite of passage for learning JavaScript, HTML, CSS. It's pretty common for people to either make a to-do list app, a calculator, a weather app. These tend to be the very common projects. So, once you get past this hurdle, and if you get a working product, you should feel fairly comfortable with your skills with these three. As you may have already realized, that there is a lot more to know about JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. We're only scratching the surface here, right? We're getting your feet wet. So once you guys go into the immersive program, you're not bombarded with information and feel overwhelmed, right? Once you guys get to the immersive program, you're going to feel years ahead of everybody else. While people are still trying to struggle, manipulate their DOM, you're already going to understand the concept and you're focused on the more advanced concepts, right? But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and end it for tonight. Tomorrow, we are going to, I'll take a volunteer to demonstrate their work, and then we're going to jump straight into the next lesson, which is going to be, I believe we're already getting straight into the Python crash course. All right, so with this being the last assignment for frontend, we're going to jump into Python crash course. The Python crash course is essentially exactly what it sounds like. We're not going to spend 2 or 3 days learning about Python. It's going to be more like understanding how the differences or the similarity between Python and JavaScript and how they're done between both of them. I will show you, for example, how you declare variables in JavaScript and how you do it in Python, how we do dictionaries in JavaScript, how we do it in Python, and so on and so forth. Just going back and forth and really understanding those concepts. Once we get a nice little warm and fuzzy on the syntax, most of the learning is going to come through the actual exercises that we're going to be doing. Once we get that Python crash course, we're going to start classes and objects, which is really probably the heaviest part of foundation programming and the main reason why foundation programming was created. The object-oriented programming course that I'm going to administer to you guys and make you go through will get you to a point fairly similar to the point that you have to be to pass the first assessment in the immersive program. So by the time we're done with the object-oriented programming classes, if you're able to do the last assignment with fairly ease, you should feel pretty comfortable with the first assessment going into the immersive program. And it's really just to make sure that we increase the odds of our student success when they first come in. As you can already tell, even though we're covering basic concepts of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it feels a little overwhelming. Some of these concepts might be a little difficult. It's completely different from where you guys were 2 weeks ago when we were talking about functions and learning lists and dictionaries, and now we're doing something completely different. Now you're actually implementing this code into real world like applications or ways of how you would actually use them in your programs. But yeah, if you guys attend any class from here on until the end of this course, the classes you don't want to miss are Thursdays, Fridays, and most of next week's, right? Those are days that you don't want to miss. If you do, make sure that you do catch up on it. I know a couple of you guys here maybe miss a couple of lessons here and there, and you might feel a little behind. You will feel even more behind if you miss any of the other lessons. So make sure that start tomorrow. You can try to be here, so you make sure that you get the best out of the object-oriented programming classes that we're going to go through. But without further ado, that concludes today's lesson. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.